Hi, this is Zach with Warner Wound, and today I'll be taking a look at the Straton Speciale Chronographs. So this is a brand new watch from Straton, who's been around for a few years now, doing the automotive and vintage chronograph inspired watches, very affordable, often using Kickstarter. And every model they do, they kind of ramp up, I think, the audacity of the design a little bit. And this one, the Speciale, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, is by far the most outlandish design they've done. And I think actually their most successful watch too. And I think a little bit of that is because they were willing to take a risk and pulled it off. So as you can see here, it's a strange looking case. It's sort of a cushion case, sort of square, TV shape, definitely rings of vintage Hoyer without being an homage to any one. You know, you get a little bit of Monaco from there, a little bit of the Silverstone from there, maybe even kind of those mid-era Monzas a little bit. And even then a little bit of Seiko too in some of their stranger cases as well. But its own thing too. And it's really cool. I mean, honestly, when I saw photos of this first, I was like, ooh, I don't know what that's gonna be like. It looks like it's gigantic. It looks like it's just gonna be too bold and too loud. And I have to say, they sized it perfectly for what it is, for the design, and I think it wears extremely well, as you can see here. So part of that is from the design itself. It's a 41 millimeter by 42 millimeter case, so it's basically, you know, very short lug to lug. It's sort of like wearing a square watch, and it's 13 millimeters tall, which is to be expected. This is an automatic chronograph. There is a Mecca Quartz as well, which we'll show you in a minute. And it's just this really funky design. I mean, this case is just out there and it's great. It almost looks like a monoblock case because there's no, like, only one piece here. There is a case back, so it's not an actual monoblock, but you have this really cool pyramid shape, undercut on the sides, then tapers up. I think that's just a great shape, really cool form, and it makes it wear nicely because there's a little bit of like a nice action here when you bend your hand. So it's not, you know, it frankly just makes it kind of ergonomic and comfortable. And while it is tall, I mean, this thing is in over the top chronograph, so it's like, okay, fine, I'm okay with it being a little bit tall. And like I said, this one does have a Valjoux 7750, and 13 millimeters is actually, you know, not that bad for that. So now looking at the dial also reeks of the 70s, but I think it's very well done, very well executed, and also just a well laid out watch because, you know, there's not a lot of dead space which can happen, which helps the watch actually feel a little bit smaller. So on the main dial surface then you've applied indices with lume. There's these big orange dots on each of them. I actually really love that detail. It looks like a glob of paint, has a very kind of handmade feeling. That said, it's well executed, so it doesn't look sloppy like a glob of paint might. You have then around that sort of a racing index for the chronograph seconds and minutes, and then around that on the very edge you have a chapter ring that is a tachometer, and that all takes into account the shape of this case, this funky shape. And I think they just do a really good job of executing all those little things. You know, it's surprisingly legible and reads well, no dead space, and it's, you know, it's busy, but I think it's totally tolerable, and more importantly, it's just in line with the aesthetic of this kind of like bombastic 70s chronograph thing. Then at 12, 6, and 9, you have the chronograph registers, square registers, very 70s, cool little diamond hands on there in bright orange. The hour and the minute hand here, long straight sticks with lume down the center, little splits, polishing, orange tips. Lots of detail and all very well executed, which I think is, fantastic. Then on the 7750 model, you have a date here, which you would expect. I think that works in well. Pretty minimal branding. There's just the S for Straton here, then Speciale and automatic. You know, I think that no one's going to complain about over branding on this one. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think the dial's well laid out. It's very tight. It's very well executed. Great case. On the sides here, obviously the pushers, nice big crown. It is screwed down. Has this angled coining here, which actually feels really nice in your hand. It's really easy to grip. And this watch comes in a bunch of different styles and colors. So this is the DLC version, matte DLC version. That's the only version with this black dial. So there's this arrangement. But then there's also 4 colors. and those come in either polished or blasted cases. So I think there's a total of something like 20 different varieties between the two movements, the multiple finishing options you have. Now just quickly taking a look at the Mecca Quartz version and another colorway. So this is sort of like the inverse of that one. If the black one was matte, this is the polished case. The polished case, though, will have a really cool feature, which is a clear DLC coated. Sorry, not just the polished case, all the steel cases. They'll have a DLC clear coat, which will just make them highly scratch resistant. That's a new thing we've been seeing recently. This is the second watch we've seen that on. And it seems like a really cool way to more affordably make a watch more scratch resistant. So excited to see what people do with that. And then this is obviously the blue dial. There's green, brown, red, maybe if I'm remembering that correctly, but all kind of those flashy 70s colors. It's a sunburst dial with then cream accents. And I think it's, once again, it's just really well done. The orange is this flare color there. It works well with the cream. It works well with the blue. And what I really actually like that he did, they used the VK67 Mecca Quartz movement, which we actually haven't seen that often, actually. I'm not sure if this might be the first watch we've had in with it. And it has the exact same layout as the Valjoux 7750. So you have a 60-minute counter up here at 12. You have a 12-hour counter at 9, and then active seconds at 6. So, on a lot of these VK movements, you actually have a 24-hour hand, which can be great, but it's not that useful, and you usually don't have the 12-hour counter. So I think this is actually a really cool version of the VK movement. Obviously, it has the 12-6-9 arrangement rather than the 3-6-9 arrangement, which I think is why a lot of people go for some of those other models, but it's really great to see that, and just also makes it so like you can get the same exact functionality more or less as the 7750, but at a different price point, same layout. Like there's just no sacrifices really between them other than what you'd expect in the mechanism. No date on here, no date at all. Instead you have S for the logo, Speciale, and then Mecca Q there. One thing I'll say about this polished case, I think it's very nice looking, nicely done. It has some brushing on the top. It is a fingerprint magnet. So of course, if you're holding it as I am, you're going to get your thumbprints all over it. I feel like the matte case, just for me, kind of worked out a little bit better. Flipping the watch over quickly, they did go all out on this case back here. It is a highly detailed speedometer with tons of texturing and then various information around it. Love to see casebacks that, frankly, if it's a solid caseback that just goes a little further, makes it a little bit more artistic. Obviously, that's for you, the owner, not for anyone else to see. It's just a nice little piece of art that's kind of like secret to you. So I think they did something cool here. It's tough. There's so much texture here. I feel like they almost could have pulled back a little just to make it a little bit clearer. But once again, I think the effort is really admirable. So lastly, this is available currently on Kickstarter. The Quartz version is $324. The automatic version is $811. That's the lowest price you can get on Kickstarter. Then they will go to $499 for the Quartz and $1199 for the automatic. So I think in both cases, exceptional prices, particularly for that automatic. I mean, $1,200 Valjoux 7750 watch. That's fantastic pricing. Throw in the fact that it's extremely unique and, from what I can tell, very well executed. And that's just, a really nice deal. Obviously, this is not a watch that's going to be for everyone. But if you're into this kind of 70s feeling, you want something with a very different case shape, this is definitely one of the most exciting watches I've seen in some time.